The stamp set that I'm using today is called Better Places. It is found in the host section of the catalog on page 171. It's right here at the top, and you can see that some of the images are very small, but note that above it says that the artwork is shown at 60%. So this stamp that I'm using today for my project is 100%. And these over here are only at 60%. So keep that in mind. These images are bigger. And you can see them here on the front of the case. So we're going to take that scenery stamp, first of all, and we're going to ink that up in basic gray ink. Now, when I designed this card, I knew that I didn't just want my whole landscape to be in basic gray. So I am going to grab a cheap cotton swab now, and I am going to remove ink from the branches and the leaves also. And you don't have to be super perfect at getting all the ink off. It's just to get most of the ink removed so that we can add color in those spaces. So I know it seems kind of weird to put ink on and then take ink off, but it just makes what I'm going to do just a little bit easier if I start with a little cleaner palette on those stems and leaves. But I want the rest of it gray, so we're just going to take one cotton swab to do the whole thing. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to remove as much ink as we can. And then we're going to come back in with our Early Espresso Stampin' Right marker. And then we're going to color those branches with that marker. Then we'll get brown branches, which is how it should be, right? And I have this memorized where they all are because I made 20 swaps of the same card. And then we'll go in with the Mossy Meadow. And it's a nice dark color so that any basic gray ink that remains on the stamp can get covered by the dark Mossy Meadow. So it's an easy technique and just my little trick to getting it inked where I wanted inked in different colors. All right, so we'll get all of these leaves. Then I'm going to huff on the stamp to make sure all the ink is wet. And then I'll put my piece of 2.5 by 3.5 inch basic white cardstock. And I will take a scratch piece of grid paper and just rub the ink onto my cardstock so that it looks like that. Slick. So now we've got those great branches and leaves in the correct colors that we want them in. Next, I'm going to take some Stampin' Blends to color some of this these areas. So I'm going to take the dark Pool Party and I'm just going to highlight a couple of these lines and then go back in with the light color and just color it in. So just go over those dark areas, making sure to blend so that the coloring looks smooth. And there are clouds here, so we'll keep those white. Then we'll grab the light balmy blue and we'll do a little coloring on the water here, just over the top of all those lines that are already there. Go around those leaves and the branches. Next, we're going to take our dark Granny Apple Green and we're kind of do the same thing as I did with the Pool Party, where I'm just going to fill in some of the line spaces here. Obviously not being super careful, just plopping the color on. Then we'll go in with the light granny apple green. Now this is a little tricky because I made all of those swaps and my light granny apple green is losing color. So I'm going to have to replace it, but I'm going to limp it along so that you can see my finished product. I've been storing this light color upside down, hoping to eke out the most color out of it that I can, but you can see the tip is getting very white. That means we're losing ink. So I'm tipping it on its side as much as I can for the purpose of making sure you see the final product, and that is definitely going to go on my next order because I use this one a lot. All right, there. Very pretty and really quite simple to color. Now you imagine I did 20 of those. They took a while, but that's okay. It was worth it. Next thing I'm going to do is take my thick basic white cardstock, which is cut at 5.5 by 8.5. And then I'm going to adhere my scene to the center of that cardstock, as close to the center as I can. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to pull out my stitched rectangle that I cut out of Pool Party, and then I ran it through the Texture 3D embossing folder. But when I used the dies from the stitched rectangles, this one here in the Pool Party is the largest. And then I also took 2 to cut a frame out of basic gray. And I used the 4th smallest and the 6th smallest to make this frame. All right, so let's put our Pool Party stitched rectangle on first. And I have noticed with the new adhesive, you got to go a little slow when it's got texture on because it will start to rip that. So I have to be careful. It's really good adhesive though. That's the good news. We're going to stick this right on in the middle. And then we will take that scenery that I told you to do earlier. Now we'll get that as much in the middle as possible. All right, so here's the next little trick. As you can see, the frame is too long. So what do? Well, if you're me, you figure out a way to use it anyway, right? So we're going to lay it on where we want it. Okay. Then we're going to cut, making sure to cut just inside that so that we have a little leeway as far as covering up any white spots or edges that are left on that scenery. And then we're going to re-adhere the frame, the section of the frame over the top. All right, so let's put a little adhesive here on the sides and the little edges. We're going to leave that frame on here so we kind of see where it's going to go, and then re-adhere our frame to make sure it covers up all of the white space on the side. There. Now it's just the way we want it, but we have a little bit of ugliness to cover up, right? So we're going to grab our linen thread and I'm going to wrap it around a couple of times. So I'm going to hold one end over here, wrap it around, and then we'll cut off that much. And actually, would you like me to measure that? I can certainly do that. So this is 12 inches and about 9, 10 more. So about 22 inches will do. Now let's go do that again. And then I do want a bow here. So I'm going to take these two ends and I'm going to start with a knot, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because this frame is just made out of paper. It doesn't have any center, so it tends to buckle and move, and it's hard to tie a nice bow when it's doing that. So now I'm going to adhere those that linen thread over those pieced pieces of the frame so that it's all covered up, just like that. And then we'll flip this over and add dimensionals. For the dimensionals in this case, I am going to use mini Stampin' dimensionals, and they have a nice wide border on two of the sides. So that's what I decided I'm going to use for my frame. And then I want to make sure to go right over that thread. Then I'm going to go to the other side and grab that too. Sometimes for me, there aren't enough edge pieces because I like to use those for things like this. So we'll go right over our linen thread. And now we're going to have to piece in the other areas. Now you can see this edge is very, very thick. So I'm just actually going to cut that down a little bit. And then we can use this piece. Works out great. So we'll use some over here. And some over here, making sure not to get that linen thread in there because we're going to need that. And now we're ready to put that onto our card. And we've put the dimensionals over that linen thread to make sure it's going to hold it where we want it. And now our frame goes around our masterpiece. And now we can tie our bow. Oop, we got our linen thread caught in there. Then once we tie the bow, that is it, folks. I am not going to add any sentiments to this one because I liked it just as it was. So I hope you enjoyed my very first project using the new host set Better Places. Remember that you can get this set for free when you spend or have a party of $150 or more. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them and book your party. Thanks for watching today, everybody. We'll see you again next time.